Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Luca Malacrino, is an actor, writer, producer, and business owner. You may have seen Luca on TV in shows like Criminal Minds as Paul Sorvino's son, in Grey's Anatomy, Coronation Street, or in Jim Carrey's I'm Dying Up Here. Luca is a member of the BAFTA Newcomers Academy and has worked with Fracis Ford Coppola in Distant Vision. He owns the production company The Chameleon Effect with the talented writer Alex Hano. Luca starred in their feature film Elephants and will be in the upcoming Dominus. They are currently in production on the feature film A Social Contract, which stars Sean Astin. And Luca stars in the short Entrainment, which is currently doing well on the festival circuit. Luca grew up in an Italian restaurant in Wales. He's owned and sold 2 nightclubs and has a wildly successful online business. Plus, he's married to my delightful guest and friend, Kaylee Hawley, who you might remember from episode 7. Please enjoy my conversation with the driven and charming Luca Malacrino. Welcome, Luca Malacrino, to Creators Cafe.
Cheers, chin chin.
Cheers, chin chin.
Thank you very much for having me. This is a true honor to be here, so thank you.
I am delighted to have you here. It's a long time coming, and it's good.
Yes.
So what are you drinking today?
I am drinking a standard flat white oat milk, oat flat, as they say in the UK. I think it's the perfect blend of flavor of coffee without too much milk, but just enough.
So for somebody that doesn't know what a flat white is, can you kind of explain it?
It's kind of like a stronger cappuccino, so it's more coffee-based, less milk, but still some milk.
Yeah.
It's like an in-between macchiato and a cappuccino.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love coffee.
I know, me too. I mean, I named my podcast after it, so
that's fair.
You are in a safe space. So how do you like to think about yourself as a creative?
How do I like to think myself as a creative? I feel like since I dabble in a bit of business, acting, writing, and producing. I feel like the word collaborator comes to mind personally, because I think I use the same almost approach or set of skills, techniques in each of those areas pretty consistently, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it's like knowing how to collaborate specifically, no matter what kind of project it is, feels the most accurate where I am right now. That could change in a year, 2 years, but
yeah,
right here today, that's what I would say it is.
That's cool. So your home base and how you think about yourself and your like major core skill set is creative collaborator.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think so, because I think it's a skill set where you have to, you're just kind of dealing with a lot, right? It's number one, like, on a micro scale, what am I trying to achieve with this conversation or this meeting or this PDF lookbook or this script or this scene or this line of dialogue. So like having specificity on what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then learning from the collaborator, where is this person right now? What is the relationship? How do they feel in this moment? Are they carrying something from before in the day? And then I think once those 2 pillars are kind of knocked down, it's like, oh, now we can do what we need to do.
That's really cool because, I mean, it goes right back to like the core of scene analysis of what is my objective, what are the obstacles, and like, so what are the action verbs that I'm going to do to get there? That's crazy. That's exactly what you're doing day to day.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Listening back, I'm like, wow, that's like training from acting school for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, nice. So let's start off kind of what brought you from the UK over. So very first of all, you're from Wales, and proudly so.
Proudly Welsh.
Yes, my family, like way back on my dad's side, my maiden name is Griffith, which is from Griffith, very, very Welsh.
Yes.
So that whole side, very Welsh. So I've always felt a connection.
Love it.
Yes. And then you also have a lot of pride in your Italian heritage.
Exactly.
So how do you see those kind of aspects of your personality affecting your work day to day or as an artist, or how do you see your background making you different?
Well, first of all, I feel like there's this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people, especially in Los Angeles, who feel this way, but I'm kind of in the middle of both. To Welsh people, especially growing up, it was like the Italian kid. And when I lived in Italy, I was the British kid. So identity-wise, I feel like the best way I explain this is I'm Welsh on the inside and Italian on the outside.
That's really funny.
Yeah, and that I think has shaped what I do, even from a character standpoint and when acting. But that's kind of how I feel, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it. Nice. And I mean, so many of us in LA are transplants from somewhere else. So you're almost in the majority just by being an outsider here. So it's a good place for us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you came to LA with the intention to learn acting, and you had some pretty cool successes pretty early on. So I happened to be with you on set the day that you booked Criminal Minds, I think it was, that got you your visa. And that was just such a cool, incredible moment in time and life-changing kind of role. What was the process of getting started in LA as an actor like for you?
I'm going to go back just a touch because I think it kind of defines a lot of who I am now and what I did.
Yeah.
Just a quick backstory. So I was in the restaurant and hospitality world from literally the age of 6. Like my dad has a really old Italian restaurant. My mother was in hotels. So I grew up in the restaurant world and the nightclub world and all of that kind of industry. And I say that's important because one of the skill sets that I think helped me with my career was being in hospitality, knowing how to step into characters and deal with specific clients, whether it's dodgy gangsters trying to get into the nightclub on a Saturday and having to put the tough card on, or a group of, beautiful elderly women that are there for a granddaughter's, bachelorette party, and it's like the schmooze in, please come in and let me get you a drink. And that kind of defined what happened. And then I started an events company, and learned a little bit more about kind of managing businesses and people. And then from there, I worked in the restaurants and actually opened up a nightclub at the age of 18, which was kind of wild. It was one of those things that I didn't know really what I was getting myself into until it was kind of like, oh, okay, I've got to figure this out now, and there's a lot of pressure. And so I kind of got into the nightclub world, had a nightclub for a year called the Ladybird in Cardiff, and then from there I opened up a second nightclub, which was a tiki bar called Capu. And then, it was very fun at that age, but it was also very dark, very dark. Being in the nightclub industry at that age and seeing what goes on behind the scenes and power, and it's some real Succession kind of weird darkness to it. And my grandfather, God rest his soul, he was like, you have to promise me. He was like, as soon as it starts doing well and things are going well, gotta get out. You've got to find something else to do in life. And he said it in a way that, I believed him. It was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this wise old beautiful soul and do something about it. And then that day came. I was at a barbecue. My friend, we had a couple of beers, and my friend had asked, if I could do anything, what would it be? I watched Jerry Maguire the night before, and I realized that I thought I wanted to be a sports agent, and then I realized that I wanted to be an actor playing a sports agent.
Oh, wow.
So it was completely by fluke. I did a workshop in the UK, loved it, got into the acting space, stepped on stage, was like, okay, there's the drug right to the veins. This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Sold the nightclubs, had no real experience in acting, came to AMDA, which is obviously where I met you, which is one of my highlights, being taught by you, just for the record.
Oh, thank you.
And went to school, and then I kind of got out of school, and I had this ticking time bomb of 1 year with the visa that I was on. And luckily, I started booking some work, and I did a theater show at the Los Angeles Theater in downtown, which was great. Got to play a mafia gangster with a massive mustache, and then and then I started booking some roles, and it was almost like fight or flight every day of thinking, I love this lifestyle, I love the energy, I love my friends, I cannot let this go to waste almost. And there's nothing wrong with going back to the UK, obviously, but I felt like I found my people in this new character, I feel like. So yeah, that's a little bit of a backstory into that first kind of break, which was Criminal Minds, my first role as kind of like, you know, a leading guest star on a network series, which was cool. And Paul Sorvino played my dad, and it was just the most epic experience ever.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it was great. He's wonderful.
I just saw him in something the other night and was reminded what a good actor he is. He's so good.
Brilliant.
Oh my gosh. And so from there, you really combined that business side of you and that production outlook that you have, and you kind of created a space for yourself. So very shortly after you graduated, you produced your own feature film, starred in it, and put it up at the ArcLight in Hollywood. And I just remember being so in awe of how quickly you committed to yourself and just made it happen. What was that process like?
It came down from, I guess, getting a clear understanding, you know, as I mentioned before. And what I realized very early on from a business standpoint within the film industry, and I always think that way and then come to the creative sometimes, is the projects that I want to do and the roles that I want to step into. If I'm looking from a business standpoint and they say, right, there's a $2 million budget, let's say, $5 million budget, why should a director, producer, cast and director trust me that has just graduated, that doesn't have that much experience? So I saw there was a gap, and it was either going to be one of these fluky roles that come in where it's like, we need a Welsh Italian that speaks Italian, that did it, you know, like with tattoos on the left arm comes through.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have to go down the ladder and just keep knocking doors down, which, you know, is tough. Like, you know, it's a really tough business to be in on the acting side only. And then I realized I need to make stuff. Like, I need to make stuff to prove myself, to be able to say, hey, I can do this. And the truth is, I was going to try each of the avenues until one of them kind of worked and is working. And that's still the approach that I have now, to be honest. So that was the mindset of kind of getting into the producing world.
So that first one was Elephants.
Elephants, correct, yeah.
And you did that one with Alex as well?
Yep, did that with Alex. We connected over a project, a short film that he cast me in years before that. And then I was building up kind of short film producing and, you know, festival circuits and all. We did a TV pilot called Served that won Best Independent Television Film Festival Award. And it was something that I knew, right? Restaurants and hospitality. And then from there we said, right, you know, let's, you know, the TV world seemed a little difficult to get into because you needed to know a showrunner, and showrunners were making their own content. So I thought it's a bit of a risky move going down that kind of realm. So independent features is where I kind of started in after that experience with Alex. Again, kept it tight, location that we had, super tight budget, you know, money on credit cards kind of thing. And the goal for that movie was not to go winning awards. It was to prove that we can make a film on budget that looks good, sounds good, feels good, and ideally the acting's good. And I think we achieved that with the film, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I still remember it and remember the experience. And it was just... In the funniest ways, it doesn't sound like a compliment, but it just looked like a film in a movie theater, right? And it was like, yeah, that's good. And it's like, that's incredible for your first shot out where you're producing and starring in and making this giant project. I was like, yeah, this is good. And there was some really like powerful moments in it, and it looked good and it sounded good. You completely achieved all of that. And then your work since then has just continued to like really consistently grow. And I appreciate the guts that it takes to just keep putting yourself out there again and again and again. It's pretty incredible what you're doing.
I appreciate that a lot. It's, you know, I feel like sometimes we as artists, you know, chase a little bit of like, did I do okay? Did I do well? And hearing that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then what was kind of your big next move after you did those projects?
From there, I was kind of in this space where, number one, you hear the statistics of how many people make one feature and then don't make the second feature. And I don't know the exact quote, but I know it's like insane. It's like high 80s or something, 90s, like crazy numbers. So obviously I used that to be like, all right, we're going to do it. And the thing that I learned from Elephants was I feel like the line between commercial and independent is a fine line. And I think the world has to be big enough to fit commercially and to be able to be sold and profitable and actually make another film, but it still needs to have that independent touch where there's where it's not too on the nose and there's nice clear arcs and it's a bit more kind of artsy. So COVID hit, and just prior to COVID I had, multiple kind of acting kind of wins and in appearances and films and stuff, and then COVID hit and everything shut, and Alex and I basically lived together at that time, and we sat down and said, right, let's take a list of top 50 to 100 movies that have had success minus $1 million budget, and let's see what the similarities are, the patterns. So we did this exercise that was inspired from a Will Smith story on like how he had a success as a movie star and did something similar. And we realized that the recipe was like, contained, it was strong arcs, it was one role where you get a great name in there and another role with a kind of another supporting name. And as long as it's tight 90, 95 pages, like that's kind of something that we kept seeing. And there's got to be some alter theme to the world that we're creating, like taking something out of the world or putting something in and seeing how that reacts. And, during COVID, I switched my mindset to producing a little bit more and writing, because acting-wise, it was a bit of a mess. And I took all these LinkedIn meetings, just like so many, like I think 282 random LinkedIn meetings. With just people in the industry. I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm doing nothing right now. I'm assuming you aren't. I would love to hear your story and learn a bit more about producing. And I took like 280 something meetings on LinkedIn over Zoom. And from that,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was a huge learning. Like I could probably put a book on just those conversations.
Absolutely. I haven't heard of anybody that is in our industry that took that initiative. That's really, such a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I had some of the most inspiring. I met some of those amazing people that are still in my life now, and just inspiring stories that went, oh, that's the shortcut they made. I'm going to figure that one out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. And from there, I met this producer that read the script, A Social Contract, and it was this idea of the kind of high level pitch for this, to show you, go back to like what I mentioned of like how we got to this point. It's a senator elect who is about to come into power, and he's about to choose his head of communications, chief of staff, and it's between two potential candidates. And it's Thanksgiving. The movie starts where the two individuals who are up for this position come for Thanksgiving dinner with his family. They each bring a friend, a partner. And basically, literally page 5, there is a nuke heading for America, for Los Angeles, and it goes from him choosing who the chief of staff is going to be to choosing who is going to live, because there is a helicopter arriving in like 60 minutes and only 5 people can make it. So 2 people are like left off.
Oh, wow.
So he has to now choose that instead. So that's kind of the mindset of like the containment, the high stakes kind of conversation.
Yes. That's life or death. That's great.
Literally.
Yeah, that's incredible. Congratulations. That's so exciting. Yeah. Are there any other projects that you've done through the years that stand out for you? I know you also took entrainment recently to festivals. What was that process like?
That was another interesting one, because the writer-director that I worked with was a musician first. He was like a very accomplished, wonderful, I want to say genius, to be honest. He's really good at music.
This is Bill,
yes? Bill.
Yeah, who just did, what was his cool project with the Muppets? He just wrote a song with the final Muppets. Song,
and like worked on the Muppet Show. He's a very talented musician and writer-director.
It's incredible. Yeah.
He's wonderful, again, collaborator.
Good.
Because the way that he attacks filming is always music first in a way. So before even reading the script, like, I listened to the music that he made for it.
Wow.
And I used that as an anchor for everything. So I got to really get into this tone, and it's a high stakes, again, kind of life or death, kind of through line. And just having that in the background for like breaking down the script and getting into character and having this ticking drum beat, you know, that, I don't know, it just brought it all together really nicely. So that experience was amazing. Was, again, a great collaborator to work with. We are now writing the feature version of it. It was a proof of concept.
Great.
Went to some wonderful film festivals, including FilmQuest, which if anyone hasn't been to FilmQuest, it's just a vibe. That's the word I'm going to say. It's wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah, that's true. You've really kind of hit the circuit pretty well. Is there any other festival other or in addition to FilmQuest that you really enjoyed?
Oh gosh, which other ones in particular? To be honest with you, have been kind of busy that I haven't been able to go to all of them. There was one, the main sci-fi in Boston, Boston Sci-Fi Festival, that did really well. I think, you know, when we talk about how we evolve as artists, as creatives, I had one distinct kind of moment during COVID, again on one of these calls, these LinkedIn calls, where I was speaking with a well-accomplished actor and asking them, you know, about, you know, life and what would they do differently, and the one thing that they shared with me was the lack of control as just an actor. And I hadn't really thought about it until this conversation, and it was the idea of, you're waiting for the phone to ring. It's like, yeah, you've got your mother's, 50th birthday, and you've planned it for 6 months, and then the day before it's like, oh, I've got a call back. I'm sorry, I can't make it. And I had this time to kind of really think about that during COVID, and it kind of shaped my way, because pre-COVID it was just like acting, do whatever I can, just like really go for it and do the auditions and get in the headspace and get knocked down and get picked up again, and, you know, the ups and downs that we all go through. And it kind of hit me that I thought, right, what do I actually want to achieve as a creative? Like, what would make me happy on a day-to-day basis if I had that? And I think it dawned on me that it was more about, like, if I could do 2 movies a year where I had time to prepare and I enjoyed it and I got to have some control in even the articulation of the character or the arc, that's what would fulfill me, and maybe some theatre work in between that. So when COVID hit, I made this, like, I was also kind of going through immigration and visa changes, so had a period where I couldn't work legally for a while, and I met my wife and started to build up these amazing emotional, you know, ties, and being like, oh, I can see a future right now, you know, with Kaylee. And it was like, I need to figure out what I want to do. And I literally went from putting the actor hat on 90% and 10% the producing, writing, to then making a full switch of saying, right, I'm going to use this time over COVID to really align myself with, if I put everything into writing and producing, like, what can I achieve? What can I learn? How can I grow? And that's kind of been the main mantra for me moving forward. And when COVID hit and finished, it was like, this is the new pattern that I want. And not to say that there isn't a world where acting will be the top priority, but I'm enjoying this moment of, like, chasing the excitement, you know, following that path of excitement. And that might change in 5 years, but for right now, it feels good.
Okay, so you've had quite a ride as an actor. You've had early success, you've made a lot of things happen for yourself. You've also had some drama of, like, because you're from the UK, you were able to work and then not work. And, you know, you've kind of had some of the same challenges as everybody else. They're just amplified because of the specifics of your story. What's it been like as a ride?
I mean, just to give you an example, like 2 different quick tones, because it's something that I always just look back and smile on when I think of that. You know, how many people said to me, well, you know, the ups are ups and the downs are downs. Like, even in school, like, that was just normal. Like, even on my introduction, like onboarding, that was like something somebody said. And I feel like I've had that a lot in life. For example, you know, I went from having 2 nightclubs and a bunch of staff and a great team and business, and then using all of that money to get myself in school, and I couldn't work because of my visa. So I used all of that money, you know, being honest with you, and I went back to, like, working in restaurants and being shown how to, like, scrape a plate. And that, like, literal up and down was, you know, beautiful, humbling, like now I look back, I'm like, wow, I'm so happy that happened to me, because it just taught me so much and shows that I really, really want to do this.
Yeah.
And then on like now the professional acting side, 2 quick stories showing the kind of downs first of like what to expect. I remember I had all these, I booked a bunch of shows, everything was going well, and then, you have the infamous like dry period as an actor where, I was working, but like I was getting so close to like chemistry reads and like out of me and one other person, and then an offer happened and then it was replaced, and kind of like life career changing opportunities that each one you have that like, this is the one, yes, like let's go, it's meant for me. And I never forget, I was on the way home, got a call from my manager, and they were like, where are you? Like, where are you? You need to go home right now. You've got to make sure you're available for a phone call. I was like, what is it? I mean, short story, I was told it was one of the main producers of Marvel, without saying names, one of the main producers, and they were casting the Venom movie. And they were like, they've called us up, they think you're a fit for this role, like this is a huge deal, and they want you specifically. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I go back home, pick up the phone, and I speak with this producer from Marvel, and I'm talking about life and acting, and she's asking why I'm a fit for this role, and I'm really building up a rapport, and I'm just like, this is it. This is the moment that people dream about. And I was so excited, and then I finished the call, and I called up my manager. I was like, yeah, the call went well. It went great. It was amazing. And they were like, all right, let's stay put. Anyway, 2 weeks go by. At this point, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be in a Venom movie. I'm going to be opposite Tom Hardy. Like, my life's going to change. It's amazing. And then a couple of weird red flags happen a little bit. And then I'm pulling up to an agent meeting. An agent meeting, going into it knowing that I booked this role.
Yeah.
And just before I get out of the car, my manager calls me up. He's like, Luca, where are you? I'm like, I'm about to go in for this agent meeting. What do you mean? He goes, you just like, don't answer the phone. It's a whole scam. Like the police are involved. You didn't give your social, did you? And I'm like, what is going on? She's like, I gotta go. I'll call you later. Just don't answer the phone. And I was sat in this car, just like, what? Like my everything just like shattered in that one moment. And I went into this meeting. I never forget. I went to this coffee shop. I met with this amazing agent. Wasn't quite a fit, but just a good person.
Yeah.
And she could tell that something had happened. And we just had a chat about life, to be honest with you, not even acting. And that was one of the kind of down periods. And then to contrast that, then on the Criminal Minds episode of like the ups and the downs, it was my first main kind of big role on TV. Paul Sorvino, I didn't know, because it was this special international episode that they were doing with Ida Turturro and Paul Sorvino, and it was an Italian role, speaking Italian and in an accent. So they do this huge table read at CBS Studios, and it was just like, I remember getting there thinking, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. And I go into this room, and there's like 100 people in the audience, like watching and taking notes, and then I see a name tag in front of mine. I'm like, Paul Sorvino. I was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing on this episode? I found out he's going to play my dad. And I was like, oh my gosh, the stakes just get even higher.
Yeah.
And then everyone's in the room. There's just this weird tension because everyone's kind of scared because of the budget of this episode, and it's such a big deal. And Paul Sorvino comes in, and he senses the energy is different in the room. Like I watched his eyes go, I need to do something about this. Mm-hmm. And it just shows how much of a wonderful human and actor he was. He stands up and belts out Nessun Dorma, top of his lungs. I mean, like, crushes it to the point where you just go, and everyone just stares at him, and he just belts out this song. The entire room changes, and he just goes, looks at me, winks, and goes, okay, I think we're ready. And it was just the most incredible experience like that of my life. And the time period from one to the other was so short, and it just really shows like the ups are high and the downs are low, and you just gotta roll with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's wild. I love that he just sensed that and took control of the room and said, nope, it's gonna go like this. And the power that we have to change rooms like that is incredible. Incredible, inspiring. So yeah, that was shows you the difference, I guess. Oh my gosh. So now on your ride, you have taken some of that control and you are combining your creativity and your business side, and you've got a couple of new endeavors going on. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. I think, again, as I had space and time over the COVID period, I knew the focus was more writing, producing and acting in stuff that I like, and other people's projects too, just to be clear. It's not like I'm only doing mine, but that is something that I knew I was in control of. So I put a focus on that. I've got another feature film, which is kind of the follow-up from A Social Contract, called Dominus, that we are kind of heading into kind of late stages of development, kind of offers, attaching talent, and then moving into pre-production ready for April. So I've got that going on the film side, which is exciting.
And you're in that one.
I'm in that one. Yeah,
Yay.
I'm in that one. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's all great. I'm just excited that you also get to act in something that you've pushed so hard on.
Yeah, I don't have to, what is it, kill this baby?
Yes, exactly.
The expression, kill your babies.
Yep.
So that's going on, and then on the producing, on the writing side, and then I started a business, an online business, at the back end of COVID, which is very random. We could do a podcast trying to explain how I got into it. But long story short, I have a business partner. We have an online business that supports construction companies with hiring services. And it's like grown pretty quickly in the last 6 months. And it's like nationwide, moving into Canada, and it's like a full business that's so exciting because, again, like I said earlier about the collaborator, I'm able to use acting techniques. I'm able to use writing techniques on the scripts, dealing with certain individuals and people and looking for the end goal and the tactics and the understanding and the listening, and all of that creative element I can tell is allowing me to have more success with the business side, and vice versa. I'm now able to attack whether it's a script or whether it's an acting opportunity or producing, and really getting clarity of like, what are the logical steps in the business to really outline before I can just fully let the emotional creativeness just get to work and just like, don't even think about logic and just get into it. So that's kind of the main focus right now. It's the writing, producing, being married, that's a new element, and
Absolutely.
A year in.
And if you're a fan of the show and you've seen the other episodes, your wife is Kaylee Hawley, who is here on episode 7 and is just an amazing artist and human. She's so fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, she's very, very inspiring and definitely inspires me most, if not every single day, just from the amount of passion she has and excitement for life. That's the biggest one for me. Yeah. So yeah, check out our episode. It's great. I enjoyed it a lot. It was really good.
She's great. I'm so glad you guys found each other. It's
Thank you.
A beautiful match.
Thank you. And that ties in, so married life and learning that, producing, writing, acting, and now this kind of business that's moving forward. And ideally, again, it's the other avenue of like, what can I do to achieve that end goal of working with people that I love on projects that I'm really passionate about. And if this business continues to have success, then that's another way of, moving into that space even more. So trying to hit every column and journey that I can right now.
Absolutely. And I think it's cool to see your journey from, 18 and owning a nightclub, and then just kind of fast forward to being a student and then learning to scrape plates years after you owned a nightclub and had a team in a different country. It's just very humbling, and it's really beautiful that you kind of just took that as part of the journey and kept going. And now you've got a huge team, and you're, I just think about the parallels of what you build when you produce things and then act in them. And now you're literally helping people to build things out in the world in a very visible way. And you're doing that in a collaborative and creative way. And you're finally getting to the point where you can have the people under you in a team to kind of specialize, and you can be in charge of the notes and the filmmaking and the collaborating and the team building. And it's really cool to see how you're using those same core skills in so many different arenas. Yeah,
I appreciate that a lot. That's I'm really grateful for that, and still able to learn so much from doing exactly that.
I feel like you've got such a great growth mindset, and I don't know, just like a good head on your shoulders and a good attitude about life. And I know that you've gone through some really heartbreaking and frustrating moments that we haven't even gotten into, where you were so close on something life-changing that was real and not a scam, and due to circumstances out of your control, couldn't do the thing.
Yeah.
And I know that that's happened for you. So I just want to put that out there, that the parallel paths that could be happening are pretty incredible as well as what you're on. So how do you get yourself into this resilient and optimistic headspace? Because it's not fake, and it's not just... Like, I can tell you're not just like, it's okay, I'll smile and get back up. Like, you have found a way to actually get through the hard stuff and actually get through the heartbreak and keep fighting and advocating for yourself. What fuels that for you?
Such a brilliant, loaded question. I think, first of all, wow, caught me off guard, I'm not gonna lie, but I kind of hit a little string there. But I think, number one, understanding circle of influence. There's a book that changed my life called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And he talks about circle of influence of things that you have control of and things that you don't. And I realized before reading that book, while I was going through these ups and downs, like, the things that I genuinely don't have control over, just forget about it, just like, and it's easier said than done, and it's a skill set that I feel like that I'm continuing to improve, but I think I've really gotten down to the point where it's like, have your hour, have your half a day, sulk, cry, do whatever you need to do, like, that's cool, but like, number one, let it go if you're not in control of it. Like, if it's the casting director's choice, so that whatever it is in your circumstance, in anything with life, but then afterwards, try to dissect it if you are in control. For example, me personally speaking, the way that I do it is I say, right, like, what did I learn from that experience? Or what could I have done differently in that experience? Or what was the lesson genuinely from that experience? And I think the more I train my personal mind to be like, cool, out of my influence, I'm not gonna let it get to me. It's gonna affect my time, energy, and who I am as a human. What can I do instead? And I think as long as, like, I grow in some area in life, it could be anything. It could be going to the gym, it could be writing, it could be business, relationship. Like, as long as I'm growing in one area of life, I think that it's okay. And that gets me through the next phase of like, what is it? And the other thing that really changed my life for the better is, again, Bill mentioned a quote, which was, as long as you always follow the path of most excitement, and then use logic to understand if that path of excitement is because you're being lazy and you don't want to do it, or because you just need to try harder and you shouldn't give up. And I've really been trying that, to be like, right, if I'm in a depressed state or I'm having a tough time and I'm down, number one, I try to shape my mind to be like, right, I'm not just depressed or I'm down, I'm not growing in a certain area of life. So let's understand like what that is. Like, let's map it out. Let's write down, which is the creative exercise I'll explain a little bit later, but like map out what those pillars are and realize, am I growing in any of those? If not, which one is the easy one? What is the low hanging fruit? And then grow in that area, and then just keep thinking, this doesn't feel exciting anymore. Is it a hurdle that will feel exciting again? Or is this, I've just fallen out of love with this, and now there's room for something else that's exciting in life, and I'm gonna go to that. And I think those, plus watching movies and listening to music, and I think, I try and avoid really depressing movies and stuff when I'm not feeling the best, but then watch them more when I'm feeling happy to ground myself a little bit. But I feel like I hope that answered the question. But
Absolutely.
That's how my mind kind of works.
Yeah. What scares you?
If I'm being very honest with you, the thing that most scares me is leaving this world before I can see the impacts or the things that I've managed to grow. I think that that is a part that I have no control on. And there's a part of me that's like, oh man, if I feel like I've given up a lot and sacrificed a lot in life to be doing all these things and have all these seeds planted that I'm really meticulously looking to grow each day. And if I leave this world before I see the benefits of those, or not benefits, but to experience stepping into that world that I've created, that definitely scares me a lot, if I'm honest with you, especially as I'm getting older. It's like, oh man, I hope that doesn't happen to me. But again, out of my influence, I just gotta keep going every day.
Yeah. Keep planting and nurturing.
Yeah.
Trusting. There's something that kind of unites all of the things that you do in this generous sharing of your spirit. And I really appreciate that. And I'm grateful that you do that. And I'm grateful you find ways to keep doing that. And I think that that's something that everybody who works with you or knows you feels. For people who are maybe identify as more shy or introverted, like for me, just what you talked about with the LinkedIn project of reaching out to 282 people, it's not even that I would be scared to do that. It's that I wouldn't have even considered that as a possibility because I have some, kind of probably mental blocks against doing something like that. Yeah. What advice would you have for people to help to trust to get themselves out there like that?
I think it always goes back for me again, and the way that my mind works, and I feel like I've said it a bunch, so I apologize for that, but it always comes down to like, what is the end goal? For me personally, it's like, for example, the LinkedIn conversation, it's like, if I'm in a place where I don't really know what to do, or I'm kind of struggling with like, what should I be doing? It's like, what is the end goal? Like, what does the day-to-day look like, smell like, feel like? What excites me the most when I visualize it? And then trying to understand, cool, like, in the most basic ways, what are the steps to get to that point? And if you don't know the steps, in my opinion, the steps are chat with people until you know what the steps are. And as long as you have clear, like end goal, North Star of like, this is every conversation, this is my North Star. Like anything that you could teach me on this is my North Star. And I think, number one, like getting clarity on like what that is, because then it kind of allows everything else to glare at you. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that before, but now I do because I have clarity on that. And then the second part is hype yourself up. Like I have this weird introvert extrovert tendency where in certain circumstances I step into this extroverted character, and other ones I know that I'm in my head and I'm just so like, don't want to do this. I don't want to be in this, big loud group of people because I'm exhausted after. But the truth is, I think it's like, especially if you're a creator or an actor, like if you need to be extroverted, put on a movie that just like oozes that energy. Like listen to some music, or like get yourself in that mindset where you're just like, oh, I'm at that frequency and now I'm going to go ahead and do it. And the same with the other one, it's I think prepping, again, just like in acting, right? It's always come back to it. It's like, do the work, mark out the beats, understand the character arc, what the tactics are, then get to that frequency and forget about everything and just play.
I love that. I also had kind of a realization when you said frequency. There's two meanings to the word. There's kind of the level that you're vibrating at, and we feel that with different people. And there's kind of some musical elements that feel involved too. But there's also the amount of time something occurs. And so if you've been in introverted mode recently, sometimes you just have to practice. And I think it's less about that forcing yourself or like fake it till you make it. And it's more like practicing something. And so literally the frequency of the frequency is affecting. I've never thought about it that way. Thanks.
Yeah, well, you came up with that. Was great. Yeah, I'm like,
that's just a cool way to tie that all together. So, what is your creator's challenge that my audience can do?
So, one thing that I feel like has been a great tool for me personally, and I thought, what should I share? It's this idea of whenever I have personally been in a block or a state of depression or down, I've always wanted to try and realign myself as quickly as possible. And I do this exercise where I'll go to a coffee shop or I'll stay in bed or however I'm feeling, inspired by. And first of all, I write down pillars and I put a notebook down and I write, first of all, career. And I might break that down depending on what my career is. Producing, acting, writing, let's say. And then I'll go into health. And then I'll go into relationships. Then I'll go into finances. And then the last one is personal. And I start to, first of all, do a quick exercise, bullet pointed, of, what am I currently doing in those areas? Just real quick, just like, even if it's 2 things per bullet point. And then from that, I analyze it and I go, am I growing in all these areas? Am I not? How much? And almost look at it as like a pie chart of where am I spending the most energy right now? And then usually 9 times out of 10, I'll look at it and go, that's kind of why I'm feeling this way right now. And then the second part to that then is then doing the same exercise and saying, right, whenever you feel comfortable with and how much clarity you have, sometimes I might be like, I'm gonna plan like a year from now on what that looks like. Sometimes it'll be, I'm gonna plan tomorrow what that looks like, sometimes a week. And then I'll do the exact same exercise and say, right, how can I grow small amounts? For example, if, the end goal is to get back in shape and feel good about how I look, for a role. It'll be, right, sit down and look at YouTube videos of workouts that inspire me. And I think that as an exercise can also be fun. And then the final part is, once I've done that, I'll actually like put music on, sit down in a room and like time myself for 20 minutes and visualize. And I'll put a playlist on and I'll like look down at the bullet points and I'll just really imagine what that feels like, smells like, who's there, like where are we, when is it, and almost like celebrate those moments. And like you said, it's like as maybe as an introvert stepping into that world, going there in the mind just helps going there in real life in such a deep and meaningful way. And I think that makes me feel better 10 out of 10. Like every single time from where I was before to then, it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Great. So it's listing your pillars, prioritizing them, and then visualizing the success of where you're aiming.
Yeah, and specifically looking at the analysis of why am I feeling this way based on the bullet points that I put down, and how do I grow in at least one of those areas? Because I think if the human is growing, you don't have time to be as depressed or as tired or as lost, because you have something that you're like, oh, I'm seeing benefits and growth on a day-to-day basis.
And you're focused on a positive direction.
Exactly.
And so you have that attention there. I love it. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. So where can people find you?
So I'm a little bit of a hermit when it comes to social media. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship when it comes to it. But I do have Instagram. My username is at Luca Malacrino. And from time to time I'll post on there, but that's probably the best place. If anyone has any questions or thoughts, or if there's anything I can help with, in any way, I've got a website which you can type in my name and it should come up.
I'll put it on the show notes too.
And my email's on there. They can more than welcome to reach out.
Nice. The other project we didn't talk about was your show from the summer, Sound Trip. Sound Trip. I just realized we didn't talk about that. Can you touch on that very briefly, just so people know that exists too? Because that's something that people could check out from home, which is pretty cool.
So I listened to a podcast again during COVID, and it was the Duplass brothers, and it was talking about like, don't always wait for that final project that has to be perfect. Like, exercise the creative skill set in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter how good, bad, or in between it is. And I had 4 friends that were in my close family, during COVID, that we saw each other, and we had this idea that, because of technology and everything that's happening with remote working, people were connecting less on a real human-to-human level, and I mean, it was just through a screen instead of through eyes. And we came up with this concept thanks to the Playwrights podcast that one of the partners, Caitlin, was on. And basically we wanted to create scenes where there is a shared. Best way to explain this is one of us. We both have headphones on. We are doing a scene in real time with no preparation. In the right ear, you are fed dialogue that you repeat, and it's synced with the other person. And then the left ear, you are given prompts on like movement, how you're feeling in a dialogue that kind of narrates what is happening with a beautiful musical score that Bill did. And you're allowed to just be so free in the moment and really connect with the other person. And there's drama, there's comedy, there's sci-fi, there's thriller. We made all these episodes, and it started off with just like, let's do it and see if this would work. And we ended up deciding to put it up at Fringe, and we won 4 big awards at Fringe, including Best Immersive Experience. And it was something, again, one of those things that we didn't have an end goal for. The end goal was to practice doing something creative with people that we enjoy being creative with, collaboration once again, and it's blossomed into this really cool concept we're using for team building and icebreaker in groups and with trauma, and it's I'm excited to see where it goes. I have no idea where it's going to go, but that's also completely fine too.
Yeah, and I think that was really neat because it combines some of the skills of improv without the stress of coming up with the narrative arc when you're in the middle of it, especially for somebody that doesn't come from a performance background. But it also clicks into the literal, the text, but also the subtext and the notes and but how are you doing it, that we dive into so much in the acting world. So it was just such a cool embodiment of all of that it was just one of the most original projects I've seen in a long time. It's very cool.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing yourself, and for just being a generous spirit. I've told people you host the best parties I've ever been to because you combine nightclub owner with generous heart, and you attract beautiful people and artists to you. So I'm always delighted to get to spend time with you and also to spend time with the people that you care about. So
I appreciate it the more you know. Best of luck with this podcast. I'm so excited to be on here. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's so great seeing you too.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you.
Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.